So I am a third-year medical student at Indiana University School of Medicine, and I was a graduate in the class of 2017 from Tennessee State University. So in choosing where I wanted to go to college, I was actually a basketball player. So I played, my whole life, all throughout high school, and I knew that I wanted to play at the Division I college level. And so I was being recruited out of high school. I had gone on over 20 college visits to different Division I schools. And they all have really good qualities about them. They kind of say though that when you know, and I would definitely agree with that sentiment, because when I took my official visit to Tennessee State, it was just a feeling. I felt so welcomed. I felt like everyone there was really invested in me and invested in what I could do, my future successes, not only on the court but off the court as well. And it just kind of felt like this is the place that I need to be and that I could see myself being successful at. And of course, I had one of the biggest factors that influenced me was my teammates. I thought that my future teammates were going to be great, and they were. And so it ended up being a really great choice for me. It's interesting. I don't think that I was so much considering HBCU versus non-HBCU. I will say that because of where I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, I was fortunate enough to go to a really diverse school, and that was something that was really important to me in moving forward in my future education and wherever I wanted to be. And so going to Tennessee State kind of reminded me the most of where I grew up and where I was from. And so I was really excited to have that feeling there. I think one thing that sticks out about Tennessee State that I've already talked about a little bit is the family aspect. There is a huge aspect of, especially from alumni, there's such great alumni support and people who are willing to help you, take care of you, mentor you in any way that you need, which I don't think is a thing that happens at a lot of other universities. Tennessee State has a really great way of getting you connected with other graduates who may be in the same field as you, or somebody knows somebody knows somebody who can help you out. And there's never any hesitation with that. So I think that that's something that's really great. That kind of interconnected network and that family feel is one thing that's really wonderful about Tennessee State. In terms of adversity or, kind of things that were unexpected, I don't think that I ever had anything that was blatantly, I felt was mean or hurtful towards me, from any of the students, or faculty or staff. In fact, I think that, some of the faculty and staff there at Tennessee State, especially in the health sciences department, so shout out to them, they were so instrumental in getting me to where I am and mentoring me and building me up to believe that, I could go to medical school, I could be a great doctor, that this is what the thing that I was supposed to do. And so I'm so grateful for them, because I know that without them, I wouldn't be here today. It's a great question. I think that there's a couple of things, at play here in terms of preparedness for medical school. I think a couple of things, like for me, it depended on the degree program that I was in. And then also, kind of this bigger idea of the funding and things that goes into HBCUs, the opportunities that are available at HBCUs. So in terms of, work ethic and things, Tennessee State definitely prepared me well for medical school. My degree program, I was lacking a few pre-medical courses, but I was able to finish those after I graduated, and go on to medical school without a problem. I do think, however, that which is really unfortunate, because HBCUs are so overflowing with academic talent and people with incredible work ethics and innovation. And there is this societal ideal that HBCUs are somehow lesser or don't provide the equivalent education, which I think is totally not true. But that ideal translates into less funding for HBCUs. And I could only imagine what would happen if Tennessee State received the funding that some of the other major state universities in Tennessee did, because boy, those opportunities could increase exponentially, and you would have students being wildly successful and having more opportunities than they thought that they could ever have. So I don't know. I think that there's definitely a few things that I wish I would have had the opportunity to do that I might have had at, a traditionally bigger school, but none of it held me back by any means. I think one of the big things is, and I know that some HBCUs do a really good job of this in terms of community outreach. But the more exposure that these schools have, the more people like, me and some of my classmates here at Indiana um, have come from HBCUs and are like now able to, once we become physicians, go out into these communities and be like, hey, this is where I went to school, maybe you would like to go to a school like that too. I think anytime community outreach is a possibility, is something that can be done, is the way you're going to get more exposure. And the more exposure you have, the more desire people in the community might have to go to those schools. And so, supply and demand, as that increases, you're going to want to push more of the funding into those schools. But honestly, that's such a complicated, topic, such a, so many factors play a role in that, like systemic racism and things like that have to be changed on a societal level before we might be able to see a true equity amongst schools, which is really sad to think about. So I would say to any student who was considering, any non-traditional student who was considering going to an HBCU, definitely consider it highly. Do not rule it out, because the relationships that you build there and the camaraderie that exists is something that you won't find at a lot of other schools. And that is something that's going to help you get you through the hard times, because anytime you pursue a graduate or undergraduate education, it's not going to be easy, but doing hard things with good people makes doing those hard things a lot easier. And so finding a place where you're well supported is something that should be of the utmost importance when you choose a school. So in my experience, when I went on a visit to Tennessee State University, it offered me all of those things. And I knew right away that that was where I had to be. So don't ignore that feeling when you get it, because there's a magic about HBCUs that I wish everybody got an opportunity to experience.